My name is Jeff H. Sipe, and I have over 10 years of recruiting experience, including 5 years at Google. In this video, we are going to do a deeper dive into the STAR method, and specifically, we're going to focus on the actions component. Stick with me through this video. There's so much content on the STAR method, but I really and truly believe that the actions component is really the most misunderstood part of answering behavioral questions with the STAR method. And one of the critical items that I want you to think about is, what is the goal of a behavioral question? And that's past performance predicts future results. And those future results have to come out in your actions. So when you're practicing the STAR method, just making sure it's very, very clear what you did. Please stay tuned to the end. I'm going to go through a sample example to really help you identify how to pull out the important components of an action. If you like my content, please like. If you have any comments, please comment below. And if you like my overall content, please subscribe. So, item 1, defining action. What is an action? And so an action is literally defined as the fact or process of doing something, typically to achieve an aim. And so as we think about that secondary part, to achieve an aim, that's your situation, and more specifically, your task. So really be thinking about, is this action the process of doing something, or is it storytelling? And that's a great segue into item 2, which is storytelling versus actions. Actions are really the result of doing, where storytelling is more of a narrative. As you write down your examples, ask yourself, am I telling a story, or am I really defining what I did and answering the question? And as you really get into and think about the details, are the details providing more clarity around the action, or are they just telling a story? So item 3, and this one is so critical, create specific actions. And so typically in any good behavioral answer, it's 3 to 5. 3 to 5 actions are going to support the situation and task at hand. If you only have really 1 action or 2 actions, you just need to ask yourself, hey, is this example dynamic enough? Right? Is it powerful enough that it's one I want to share with my interviewer? Your actions shouldn't be muddled. And what I mean by that is a clear delineation of each action, just understanding that one action to the next action, that your interviewer can really understand this is a specific action, this is a specific action, etc. And so what are actions? So an action might be like meeting with stakeholders, or doing research, or conducting strategic planning, taking on technical initiatives, etc. And again, another good segue into item 4, which is supporting actions. So each action should have 2 or 3 mini actions. If you just say, oh, I met with stakeholders, that tells me something, but it doesn't really give me a good visual, a good connection to what you did. So, for instance, if you met with stakeholders, tell me more about how you run the meeting, like what the meeting looked like. If you researched, what methods did you research to uncover the right data? If you did conduct strategic planning, who did you collaborate with, and how did you come up to your final decisions, a shared vision? If you worked on technical initiatives, what are the key technical findings that help drive this project or program forward, etc. And item 5, add detail. Actions without detail provide little benefit because they don't help your interviewer visualize, and they don't help your interviewer have great connectivity to your answer. And so as we think about the senses, the auditory sense, the visual sense, interviews are very auditory. So you want to create these visuals to put your interviewer in the room, in the manufacturing plant, on the floor with you, problem solving, right? All these items are going to be super, super critical. Again, if you speak generically, you're just not going to be remembered. Item 6, additional info. So there's really 4 quick items that I just want to talk about. I don't want to get into these details too much because I wanted to specifically focus on the actions today. But 1, as I mentioned earlier on, just make sure your example is really dynamic. And you'll know if it's dynamic based on the number of actions, a minimum of 3 to get to that end positive result. Answer the question. Make sure that your actions support answering the question that's been asked of you, role related. The more you can make your actions that you would also do on the job you're interviewing for, that's fantastic. And edit. You're going to have to edit multiple times. You're just going to have to continue to tweak these examples and get them better and better and better. So let's dive in. Let's do that example. I'm going to use a more generic question, but use a specific example from my career. So the question is, tell me about a time when you came up with an innovative solution to a challenge your company was facing. And so I have to give you the situation and the task just to give the framework, but I'll end with actions. So the situation was Google takes candidate experience very seriously. And so candidates that reach any part of the formal interview process, which is a phone interview, a video interview, an on-site interview, they receive a survey about 2 to 3 weeks after the process is ended. And it's really critical that recruiters, sourcers are providing this magical experience because those surveys directly correlate with your performance, and it's just obviously really important to make sure that candidates are having a magical experience. Consistently, recruiters, sourcers, they weren't getting good results. And based on my high scores, I decided I needed to come up with a solution to show what I was doing and how I was having success. So my task was really simple: come up with an innovative yet simple solution that was really going to help my colleagues up their success rate. The first action I needed to take was I needed to create the training. And so I created a training. It was a 12-slide deck using Google Slides, and I focused on 5 major components. I wanted my audience to put themselves in the candidate's shoes. I wanted to teach them about inbox management, ATS, so applicant tracking system management, calendar management, and definitely have Q&A. The next action and step I needed to take was I needed to present. So my first presentation was to about 20 recruiters on my direct team, pulled them into a conference room for a half an hour facilitation, told them it was laptops open, questions were obviously a part of the process, and Q&A at the end, but I wanted it to make it really interactive so that they were getting great value based on positive feedback. The third step I took was to spread the knowledge. And so the way I went about doing this was I met with product area leads, so software engineering recruiting lead, product recruiting lead, etc., to learn more about their area and then share the details of this course. Every single one of these 7 product area leads gave me their approval to schedule this training. And based on the positive feedback from those trainings, I decided I need to grow the program even more. And so the fourth action I took was I really expanded the training by getting help. That was the first step I needed to take. I needed to get some help. And through research, I discovered that a colleague in Dublin, her name was Vlada, was working on a similar project. And so the specific actions we needed to take were we definitely needed to rewrite the deck. We needed to make sure it was super formalized. And then we needed to bring in additional resources to make it a part of our Grow tool, which was our online training tool, so that anybody could go in and sign up for this training. So we brought in people like a strategy partner from our learning and development team, a program manager from HR, and then multiple additional trainers to help us deal with the bandwidth of training on this globally. And ultimately, we were able to add it to the Grow tool. The last action was I wanted to make this training mandatory, and mandatory in a good sense that we would add it to the onboarding training. And this required many actions too of really, we had to rewrite the course again to align with the way the onboarding criteria came in. We had just had to get approval from upper leadership to make sure that we had approval for adding this with sourcers and recruiters, and ultimately it was added to the onboarding training. So the next step would obviously be to talk about the results, the learnings, and the follow-up questions. And the follow-up questions would be really focused on, hey, can I expand on any of those 5 actions that I took? This part took about 2.5 minutes. I timed it before filming, so I think it's about 2.5 minutes. And for a really dynamic example, I mean, this project took a couple years overall. A 4 to 5 minute answer is fine. And lastly, you are going to tweak this example. I think there's too much storytelling. in these actions. And so I would want to continue to tweak and tweak and tweak them to make sure that the actions were even more clearly defined and I was telling a little bit less of a story. I think most of the details are important, but there's probably a few additional details that I don't need in there. And again, this just comes over time of tweaking it, tweaking it, and tweaking it. So type them out, practice them, tweak them, and remember your actions will ultimately tell the story. I hope this helps. Thanks.